Check, check, check. Okay. Oh, maybe I should bring some water. Yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.
Ma Yafeh Hayom, how lovely today is, and it of course is lovely to welcome each and every one of you back into our sanctuary for the beauty of Shabbat, for the joy of Shabbat, most importantly, for the joy of being together with one another. It is my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of Cantor Shemesh and John Bowen, our wonderful accompanist, to those that are joining us here in the congregation, to those that are joining us live on our webcast. It is a moment of true mixed emotions that we stand together here this evening, because it was the day after last Shabbat that so many of us watched with eyes peeled, quite literally sitting on a knife's edge, wondering if we would see the first hostages come home in more than 475 days. And as we watch the split screen greet us on Sunday morning here in the States, we finally caught a glimpse of these young women returning to the only place they wanted to go, returning to the only place that Israel wanted them to go, directly into the arms of their mothers. And so it is that we gather here again this evening, having watched Emily and Romy and Duran reunited with their families, that we wait once again with this incredible, with this unthinkable, with this despicable waiting game that we play, wondering as we go to sleep this evening, will we wake up once again to see Leary and Karina, Daniela and Naomi reunited with their families tomorrow morning on our screens once again. So we say, Halavai.
Levi.
May it be so. So we are gathered together to not just welcome in another Shabbat, but to join together to give thanks and gratitude for the liberation of those three hostages, and to offer our prayers and supplications for a Shabbat filled with, we hope, another incredible reunification. Whether you are brought here for those means, whether it is a heavy heart that has brought you here, whether it is just simply to get out of the cold of another January New Jersey evening, or whether it is to find comfort and solace here in our community, we welcome you. And to welcome in Shabbat, as we always do, we begin on page 120 of our Mishkan Tefillah, As we do on each and every Shabbat, starting off our celebration of the 25 hours ahead of us by bringing just a little more light into the world by lighting our Shabbat candles. So we invite you to join with us on page 120 as together we chant the blessings for our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And we turn the page on 123. Now that we have brought some light into the world, we multiply that by adding some sweetness. So we join together in the words of the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, בשבת קודשו, באהבה וברצון, המחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית. כי הוא יום תהילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציון מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. Chaim. Our service continues as it usually does on page 138 with the words of Lecha Dodi, the words that come to us from the hills of Tzvat up in the north of Israel, the mystical city filled with the spirit of Shabbat. And as the Kabbalists sat there trying to figure out how to put words to the feeling of Shabbat that came into their midst, they came up not with a prayer, but with a poem. The words of Lecha Dodi, giving unto the feeling of Shabbat that of being a bride. Because each and every Shabbat we enter into a marriage between God and humanity, a marriage once again between the holiness and the ordinary. So we join together on pages 138 and 139 for the words of Lecha Dodi. We are going to be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And Cantor, that says here on our sheet that the composer is as heard in Jerusalem. So you want to give us a...
Yes, so this is a Lecha Dodi setting that they sing in the great synagogue, in the great choral synagogue in Jerusalem. And that's where I heard it.
Beautiful. Please join with us.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela ay dai dai Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה Lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela ay 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 lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nekabela לקראת שבת לכוון אלך כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת קלה ילדי 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 לשבת נקבלה ay 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 lecha dodi likrat kal yadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela verse 5 hitoreri hitoreri kivaret umiori uri uri shirdaberi evod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat kapela ay 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 lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat nei kapela.
We invite everyone to rise to face the door as we chant our 9th verse, welcoming in the Shekhinah, the spirit of Shabbat and God, into our midst.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי כלה בואי lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela ay 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 lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat kabela ay ay lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 nei Shabbat nekabela.
And we remain standing as we turn to page 146 for our call to worship the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Adonai, Amevorach, Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai, Amevorach, Leolam Vaed. Yai, 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 yai.
Top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
חי וקיים, תמיד מחלנו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
On page 150, words of Ahavat Olam.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. אהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמי. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
You may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 157, please join me responsively with the English. You'll take note in a few moments of where we are in our Torah portion cycle, and why these words are made even more meaningful by the reading of the parashah we do this week. But the words in English are also not lost on me as the way that we started the service, because we are eternally grateful in these last 7 days, hopefully more so in the next 24 hours, by the gift that we were given so many thousands of years ago, the gift that we are given each and every time we see one of our hostages run into the arms of their mothers, the gift of freedom. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets, instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Norot tehilot, osef eleh. Norot tehilot, osef eleh. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, okei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Eli anu ve'amru, ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Norot
tehilot,
osef
eleh.
Norot tehilot, osef eleh. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. ונאמר כי בנה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא
tehilot,
עושה פלא, נורא
tehilot,
עושה
eleh.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
And as we turn the page to 160, we find in front of us the words of the Hashkivenu, the words that speak of our Sukkot Shalom, our shelter of peace that is built over us in these hours of Shabbat. And again, whether it is for the best of reasons or for the most solemn that you join us this evening, the wish that we have for each and every one of you is your lives, your families, all those around you. In fact, our Jewish people, Am Yisrael, this Shabbat, are blanketed in our own Sukkot Shalom. Join us on page 160 for the words of Hashkivenu.
השכיבנו אדוני השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור את צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. Sometime I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars and our children will play. One day, one day, one day. Oh, one day, one day, one day. One day this all will change, treat people the same, stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing song of freedoms like why oh, why oh, oh, oh. One day, one day, one day, one day. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars and our children will play. Why oh, why oh, why oh. Day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day.
And on page 162, we turn the page to find the reason we sit here this evening, the commandment to observe Shabbat and to make it holy. And we do so by joining together in those words, the words of the Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל אוהב השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
page 165, we reach the part of our service called simply tefillah, simply a prayer. And that is because it is the centerpiece of our prayer service. It is a point at which some of our rabbis have taught us we are supposed to be lost in ourselves, lost in the melody of the words, lost in those liturgy pieces that we know so well, that we have been saying since the time of our bar and bat mitzvahs, if not before that. And so we are supposed to not just daven, not just pray, but let our minds wander for the words of the tefillah, the words of our prayers on Shabbat. Don't ask for anything. They simply praise God's name and give thanks for the fact that we get to be here on this planet, in this existence together with one another. And again, with the week that we have had, and the week that is to come, the idea of counting our blessings, the idea of being able to simply be, to give thanks for the gift that we have been given, the gift of life and the gift of love, could not be more poignant in the hours in which we find ourselves. So we invite everyone to rise, to join us beginning on page 164 and following us along with the words on page 170.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, הקדוש.
You may be seated. I would be remiss if I didn't remind us of the words that we just said in the Givurot. Somech noflim v'rafei cholim umatir asurim. We praise the God for freeing the captive. On top of page 173, may these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We've reached the point in our service where we take a moment and think about those for whom could use just a bit more healing. Healing of the mind, of the body, of the soul, of the spirit. And so if there are those among us who would like to add a name to our Misha Berach this evening, I would invite you to share their name out loud or in your heart, so together we can offer our prayers for Fuach Shlema.
In memory of Gail Bernard Ben Moshe.
No, because Nathan Stone and Bernard, because Yellen.
For the health of Nellie Palmone.
May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those names said out loud, said in our minds, and said in our hearts. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored, their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofer HaCholim. This precious gift of life. We've taken to this section in our service to add additional reading on behalf of the Jewish community, not just in Israel, but across the world. Avinu Shebashamayim, Rock and Redeemer, watch over Israel. Spread your shelter of peace over her lands and over all our brothers and sisters who live there. Shine your light upon Israel's leaders, helping them to overcome all divisiveness and to act with clarity and determination. Protect the men and women who defend Israel. Let them be safe, and may they be victorious over the terrorists who attacked and continue to threaten our people. Achinu kol Beit Yisrael. For all our family of the house of Israel, send complete rescue and full redemption to those still held captive by the enemy. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they may be protected from all harm. Implant understanding in the heart of the enemy that they may return the captives in wholeness of body and spirit. Watch over them, God. Hear their prayers. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, maker of peace on high, bless the state of Israel with peace and everlasting joy for all who dwell there. Letting it ring out from Metula to Eilat, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. As together we all say,
Amen.
Amen. As we so often do in our prayer service, we turn away from the words on the page and instead turn inward to ourselves. As I've shared before, to me, it's the genius of our liturgy. So much of what we are told to do can seem rote, can seem like we're reciting certain pieces for the sake of reciting certain pieces, following a certain order for the sake of order alone. And yet each and every prayer service that we come together, those who laid out the roadmap for us knew, much like the founders of the Constitution here in the United States, that oftentimes not everything that is written on the page is enough to encompass everything that is in our hearts. And so we take a few minutes of silent prayer and silent reflection, of personal meditation, turning inwards, as we said before, not to ask of anything of Shabbat, for even on the day, the seventh day of creation, God rested, but instead to simply be with one another, to be for a moment of time in this space together, giving thanks for the greatest gifts we are given, and realizing that whatever week we had behind us, we get the greatest gift of all, to take a pause, to hit the reset button, and start all anew Sunday morning. Pause for a few moments now, a silent prayer.
Page 180 in the bottom. Our prayer for peace. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Uyase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu. ועל כל ישראל יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
So about 10 minutes ago, I gave you a piece of homework to do, except not really homework, really more just 10 minutes later in the service. So I posed the question of where are we in the Torah right now? And if the clue that I had given you was we are somewhere, something having to do with the words of the Micha Mocha, that might be able to give us a clue. Does anyone know where we are in the Torah, if that is the case? Around which story? If it is Micha Mocha and we're walking through the Red Sea. Yeah, exactly right. Yes. Moses, plagues, story of Pesach. Yeah, we are in and around that part of the Torah. We are in the book of Exodus, the book of Shmot, the second book of the Torah. We just finished Genesis a few weeks ago, and we are in the second parasha of that book. We are in Vayera. Vayera is the parasha of which we are given the beginning of the story of Moses, the beginning of his appeal to have to go talk to Pharaoh, and we are given the first, I believe, 6 plagues. 7 plagues? 7 plagues. 7 plagues? 6 plagues. First 6 plagues. Close. The first 6 of our plagues are told in this story. So it is a weighty parasha. Of course, we have 52 weeks to get through, so everything is broken up into pretty big chunks. But I was taken this week in reading a little bit about our parasha, about one particular aspect of the story. I am always enthralled a little bit by this story, particularly the part of the story where Moses is called on to be a leader of people. And as I usually share with people, although I think most people know the answer these days, Moses, of course, sees a bush burning. He doesn't understand that it's burning, but it's not burning. It's a flame, but it's not burning down to the ground. And he appears to go closer to it, and he hears a voice, and of course, you can imagine the voice of God. The very first thing God would say to Moses would be, anyone have a clue? If you were to hear the voice of God, what kind of? I am God. Anyone else? Be a good way to qualify it. There's no wrong answers. Yeah. So you can imagine you're in a powerful, think about any kind of position of power that you've ever been in, or meeting with someone in a position of power. You can imagine the things that might come out of their mouth first. And so the first thing Moses is told by this booming voice from above is to take off your shoes. It's a very Japanese kind of style of holiness and reverence that God had. Take off your shoes, you're in holy ground. And then, of course, my other favorite part of that particular end of the story is the fact that Moses, when presented with the idea that you are going to be the leader of people, you are going to lead the entire people of Israel out of slavery, and Moses' response to this call is, you got the wrong guy. Definitely not me. You can't be talking about me. We're told that Moses had a stutter. He knew he wasn't going to be a person that could speak truth to power as it was. But of all of that, there is one thing that keeps coming back to my mind, and so I'm going to ask you to beseech me just for 10 seconds. If you would close your eyes for one moment, I want you to think in your head of Moses. Everything you've ever thought of, everything you've ever heard. Maybe it's Charlton Heston, maybe it's a story from a children's book. But think of Moses in your head right now. Picture Moses, the person, in your head right now, and someone tell me, what is one thing that your Moses has about them? Anyone can just call out. A robe. Yes, a robe. Anyone else? A staff. Who else can show me a raise of hands? Who else has Moses in a robe and with a staff in his hand? That's mine too, yeah. Yeah. That is the picture that we see of Moses. And so just for a moment, I want to think about that picture for a second. And I want to think about what is in Moses' hand. Because in almost every picture, we see Moses holding his staff, holding his rod. Has anyone ever thought for a moment about that? Why is the man who is called our greatest prophet of all time, the man for whom was so venerated by the people that we don't even know where he was buried because we were afraid that people would worship at that grave too much? Why is it that this man has been given some kind of walking stick in his hand? And it's not just a small facet of the story. This staff, this rod, will become the focal point of so much of what Moses does on his journey. In fact, we first encounter the staff in this parashah. God says to Moses, "What are you holding there?" And Moses goes, it's a stick. And God says, "Well, throw the stick down on the ground." And it's the first time we see that stick turn into a serpent. We'll see that same thing come about later when he goes in front of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh tries to outdo each other with their magic, and he throws the staff down on the ground and it turns into a snake, and Pharaoh goes, "That's a great party trick, watch this," and he calls his guys around and they create two asps, two snakes, and what happens? Moses' snake devours the other two snakes. That's not the end of the staff. The staff, we are told, is possibly what actually sets off the plagues. And the staff, we are told, is what actually parts the Red Sea. Of course, it's the same staff that we will find out will ultimately be Moshe's downfall, because he is told to wave that staff over a rock and instead hits the rock, and by doing so, the water that the Israelites were so desperately in need of comes pouring out of the rock. And they say, "Wow, Moses, look what you did." God doesn't take too kindly to that and says to Moses, "For that, you won't ever get the chance to enter into the promised land." And so we find the ending passages of the entire Torah, Moses overlooking the land for which he cannot go. So what is it about the stick? What is it about his staff? It reminds me of Harry Potter. Right? Because the only other people that I know that always wear a cloak and carry some kind of stick in their hand are wizards from Hogwarts. And in fact, if we think about Moses' story about what he's wearing, that stick in his hand, it almost has the same kind of abilities as the wands we learn in the Harry Potter universe, which are made from all kinds of incredible materials. And as we learn from the Ollivander in the wand workshop, the wizard doesn't choose the wand chooses the wizard. So where does the staff come from? Believe it or not, we learn in the Talmud that there were 10 things created on the dusk of the eve of the first Shabbat. So the evening of night 6, we're told that there are 10 things that are born into this universe. The mouth of the earth that ends up swallowing up Korach, which is a story we read later on. The mouth of the well of Miriam. The mouth of the donkey, Bilam, the story of Bilam and Matovu. The rainbow that Noah will see. The manna that falls from heaven for the Israelites. The shamir worm that chews the stones, crafts them for the temple. The script, the writing, and the tablet, so the entire Tanakh, and Moses' staff. So we're told that the staff actually comes into the universe before Moses is even a part of it. In fact, before humanity is really a part of it. And so our Midrash tells us that it was actually delivered to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden Adam gave it to Enoch, Enoch gave it to Noah, Noah gave it to Shem, Shem gave it to Abraham, Abraham gave it to Isaac, Isaac to Jacob, Jacob brought it to Egypt, who gave it to Joseph, and when Joseph died, the Egyptians took possession of it. Now we're told the staff actually had 4 Hebrew letters on it. It had the name of God, the Yud, the He, and the Vav He are on the staff. And so it goes into the care of the Egyptians, but they can't read it. And then it eventually goes to Jethro, who was one of Pharaoh's advisors, but is known to be someone else very special. He becomes Moses' father-in-law, who takes the staff to Moses, knowing his son-in-law is of the people who read this language, and delivers him the staff. And the rest, as they say, is history. So from seemingly nothing, from seemingly a piece of wood that was created on the eve of the first Shabbat, it makes its way to the liberation of all of the Jewish people. So what are we to think about all that? What does that have to do with anything? So we should all have a stick, we should all have a wand, that's the secret of existence? I would posit it is quite the opposite. What do we learn of the staff? We learn that God is not a fan of magic. God's clearly not a Harry Potter fan. Because magic is temporal. It's corporal. It's of this world. It is a parlor trick. It is smoke and mirrors. In fact, we see that in the story of Pharaoh coming up, when the snakes are laid on the ground and God almost says, okay, your snakes, my snakes, well, I'll eat mine, whatever. Snakes don't really matter. It has nothing to do with the staff itself. It's the power behind it. And in fact, again, we see the same thing with the story of Moses not being able to go into Eretz Israel. It's not the staff that makes the problem. It's Moses that makes the problem. It's man. So I think the lesson that we are told to take from the idea of this staff being at the centerpiece of so much of our history is just that. That sometimes we need that security blanket. Sometimes we need that thing to hold. Sometimes we need that walking stick. Sometimes we need that thing that gives us a little more power and belief in ourselves. But it really has nothing to do with the stick at all. And so sometimes, yes, we might wear a beautiful suit, a power tie to a meeting because we think it gives us the strength to perform better, but it has nothing to do with the suit. And sometimes we might write the most strongly worded letter of our convictions and try and deliver it to the person that we think needs to hear it, but it's not the letter. Sometimes we might think that we have a show of force. As we've seen over the last week, all of the military might in the world, all of the greatest weapons of war that we can possibly have at our disposal, don't mean a thing when 3 young women run back into the arms of their mother. The things that we have that we feel give us power might make us feel good in the moment, and maybe we need that. But at the end of the day, it's more important that we turn into ourselves, that we realize the strength doesn't lie in some wand or staff or stick in our hand or some cloak around our body, but instead, as we learned with Harry Potter, the strength lies deep inside of you. The power of love conquers all. With that, Harry Potter references aside, we turn our Sidurs again to page 586, as together we rise for our concluding prayers. We begin by doing that with the Aleinu.
עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המון. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
And we remain standing as our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us in our midst. We remember those in our community for whose yahrzeits we remember this Shabbat: Austin Adler, Isaac Danielson, Helen Deutsch, Edna Dolliner, Jerome Eckenthal, Bruce Donald Friedman, Minette M. Friedman, Edward Klein Gillenwater, Susan Katz, Sandra Kaufman, Dr. Aaron Kramer, Herman High Benjamin Rosen, Walter Rothenberg, Sylvia Ruderman, Myron S. Solid, Herbert Turner, Anna Wachtel, and Sandy Wish. We remember those taken from us in most recent days, those in the 30-day period of Shloshim: Herbert Ross, father of Elizabeth Cooperstein; Barbara Margolis, mother of Stu Margolis; Sylvia Waskover, mother of Jan Goldenberg; and Barbara Reese Howard, mother of Stephen, Adam, Karen, and Lisa. If there's anyone else who is observing a yahrzeit this evening, you may feel free to share a name out loud. To all those names said either out loud or in our hearts and our minds, we add the names of those soldiers of the American Armed Forces and the Israel Defense Forces who have and continue to so bravely give their lives in defense of our safety, security, and freedom. Together with those names that we read, as well as those for whom there is no one left to say Kaddish, we join together with the words of the mourner's Kaddish, the Kaddish Yatom on page 598. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamich malchutei, v'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael, b'agala v'yizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam le'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitalel v'yithalal shemei dekudusha barechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, אמרו
Amen.
אמן.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us all and to all of Israel, as together we say,
אמן.
Amen. You may be seated. Well, it has been a pleasure to have you here with us this evening. We hope you will join us again soon. We have some wonderful Shabbatot coming up, including Cantor, our Shabbat Shirah,
Yes.
which is coming up in 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, February 7th, we will celebrate Shabbat Shirah with songs and music and the band and our junior choir will be singing. We will be celebrating 50th anniversary of the first woman that was ordained as a cantor. So all the compositions, all the musical settings will be written by female composers. It will be some of the new tunes for you, and some will be familiar because there's so many great female composers.
And Shabbat Shirah is, of course, as we are talking about where we are in the Torah, is the parasha of the Israelites crossing through the Red Sea. And so as they crossed through, led by Miriam, Moses' sister, they sang their songs, which is why we focus that Shabbat on song. Included with that, we will also take the Torah out of the ark and unroll it to show you the parasha, because it is one of only 2 sections of the Torah that is not written purely in columns. It is written looking a little different so that you could easily find that incredible parasha. So we'll have a chance to unwind it and show it to everyone who is here. So great opportunity for those who want to see something a little different inside of the Torah. Later on in this winter, entering into spring, we will also have our famous Shabbat Purim, where we will focus again Friday evening on not just a delicious community dinner, but the return of our second annual Latka Hamantashen debate to find out what is the best of the two Jewish traditional holiday foods. And that'll be followed on that Sunday, this is the weekend of March 15th, that Sunday by our Purim Spiel, which of course, what else could it be this year except for the story of Wicked. So we hope you'll join us for all of those incredible moments that we have coming up. You can always check the website and your email blast for all of the different programs. So it has been a pleasure this evening to share the bima with Cantor Shemesh, as always, with her incredible voice and music selection and passion for the things that we are singing, and of course our incredible accompanist John Bowen, who always adds such wonderful piano music to everything that we do. We are going to close this evening with the words of Adon Olam on page 625 for those that need it, and then we will do our quick motzi, and we invite you to join us afterwards in the atrium right outside of the Kaufman Chapel for some delicious oneg treats, so you too can add a little bit of sweetness to your Shabbat.
Adon Olam is on page 625. Please join us. Adon Olam, asher malach beterem kol yesir nivra, leit nasa v'cheso kol, azai melech shemo nikra, ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להגבירה, בלי ראשית בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, yada da da da, yada da 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 da da. Vehu eli vechai goali, vechur chevli beetzara, vehu nisi umanos li, menat kosi beyom ekra, verochavti avki druhi, beet ishan beayira, veimruhi geviyati, Adonai li velo ira. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya da 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 da, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya da 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 da, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
We hope to add to this bounty this Shabbat the visuals tomorrow morning of Liri and Karina, of Daniela and Naomi making their way back to their families. And so with that in mind, we invite you to join us to give blessing over our challah and over the bounty that we are given.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shabbat Shalom, B'tei Avon. Please join us outside. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.